Welcome to Radcast, where science and soul converge in shaping the future of human potential. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Peterson, and together we're stepping beyond limits to explore super longevity. Produced by the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, the visionaries behind RAADfest, Radcast is more than a podcast. It's a movement for the bold, the curious, and those who refuse to settle for anything less than the extraordinary. Together, we'll uncover the cutting-edge science, unknown strategies, and transformative practices, paving the way for a future of limitless potential. If you're ready to think bigger, dream bolder, and live longer, you're in the right place. This is Radcast. Now let's get ready to explore the future of life itself. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Radcast. Now, today is a very special episode that you are not going to want to miss because we're actually celebrating a decade of movement that has been boldly challenging the limits of aging and sparking a revolution in radical life extension. Today, I'm joined by James Strole, the visionary co-founder and executive director of the Coalition for Radical Life Extension and one of the original forces behind RAADfest, the largest and most passionate gathering for those committed to living long, strong, and radically alive. Now, alongside him is none other than Dr. Aubrey world-renowned biomedical gerontologist and founder of the Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation. Aubrey has been a cornerstone of this movement with his groundbreaking work to extend life and reverse biological aging, ideas that once seemed fringe but are now moving mainstream. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of RAADfest. It's going to be July 10th through the 13th out in Las Vegas. We want you all there. And for the first time, these two powerhouses right here that we're going to hear from today, they have brought their organizations together. They're officially joining forces to host what promises to be the most inspiring, informative, and transformative RAADfest yet. James and Aubrey, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
I love every opportunity I get to speak with the two of you individually, but today we just have both of you here. I feel like a kid at Christmas. It's like, okay, let's unwrap the presents and let's have a little fun. So we're gonna kind of go back to go forward. So we're just gonna give our listeners, although I'm sure they are very familiar with both of you, just a little bit of context. And I think this is such an exciting time because, James, I want to start with you, and I would love for you to just take us back for a moment to really what inspired the birth of RAADfest 10 years ago, and what did you imagine that it could become? Like, did you imagine it could become the global movement that it is today?
Well, wow. Okay. That's a that's a pretty big question, but
We're going in.
first, let me say how honored I am to be doing this collaboration with Aubrey for RAADfest 2025 here, July 10th through the 13th, like you said. I'm very excited about this. I think we both are. He and his Natalie were both here a couple of weeks ago. We had a great flow together. It's just been coming together in a beautiful way. So energetically, it's I think it's going to be the best ever. That's what a 10th anniversary event should be about. And we're going to bring the best of science, and Aubrey's helping do that, and inspiration. So just let me say that. And then, so it's kind of a culmination of what I feel we started in 2016, the first RAADfest, and it built up, got better all the time. I in 2015, early 15, we started feeling here at People Unlimited, which is a longevity community here in Scottsdale. It's an international community. We started thinking, we need to broaden ourselves. We were doing well in what we were doing, but we knew that there needed to be something more, I'll say, vast. We wanted to bring in some more science. We had very little of that at the time. So when we went to the drawing board on that, we said, okay, let's start reaching out to community. Anywhere I went, anyway, it was funny. People joked with me about it. If I went to restaurants or anything else, I'd end up talking. The waiter would ask me, end up always asking me, like, what do you do? Because I'd be with several people. And then I start the conversation, and Joe would always tease me and go, none of these waiters going to come to the event. They're just smooshing you because they want a good tip, But anyway, I talk everywhere I go, so Joe said, he said, well, why don't you go out, start reaching out to the community. There's a lot of people now, more people in the network, the longevity network. And so short stories, that's what I started doing. And, some of the first scientists and advocates, were like Bill Andrews, Bill Falloon, many others at the time, Max Moore and Natasha at Alcor, and then David Kekich, which unfortunately isn't here anymore with us, but he is cryopreserved, so that's great. And we just had a great. So I started opening up to these people, in the contacts that were made, introductions from people introducing me to them, and then overwhelmingly great response. I mean, I was really thrilled because it seemed like the timing was just right. I presented the idea of the coalition and then having a kickoff event like RAADfest. That's what we ended up naming it. We had a lot of the people tell us, scientists and et cetera, oh, don't have another, boring science event, please. Put something together that we all, would draw the public and we'll enjoy. And, so I thought, oh, okay, that's different. I heard that before. So that's what we did. We said, we went to the drawing board and said, why don't we put something together like a Woodstock for radical life? It's just something fun, festive. People can enjoy it, draw on the public, have music, et cetera. And so that's what we did. And at that time, Aubrey got in the picture too. I don't remember that exact happening, but somebody introduced me to you, Aubrey, and Aubrey was great. He said he had, it was funny because he'll talk about maybe, and rightfully so, he doubted that it could, he liked the idea, but he doubted it could be the success it was. And so again, fast forward into the first RAADfest 2016 in San Diego, we ended up having over 1,000 people. That had never been done from that level. Aubrey came to me then. He was great. And I remember him in the back of the room. He came to me and said, I'm never going to doubt you in this again. And so here we are today. He haven't doubted. He's been at every event. And here we are today doing a collaboration. So I think that's pretty darn amazing. And
Yes.
ever since we had a setback from like everybody did at that pandemic,
Yeah.
had virtual, but we stayed steady. We still did the event, put out the best we could virtually for a couple of years, and then came back. And now we're dealing like a lot of people are dealing with now in the events to get back the crowds, getting not be afraid to come to public events, which more and more are doing, and not just to settle for online events. And but that's how this come about, and I'm very grateful today.
Mm.
Absolutely. So yeah, from my side, obviously I started out as a hardcore, I'm trained as a scientist. Originally, I was actually trained as a computer scientist, and I switched to biology to the biology of aging in the mid-90s. But for the next 5 years at least, I was hardly doing anything outside of the hardcore academic community. I was, involved in a few online mailing lists and so on, but really nothing much. But then it all started to really change around 2002 when I was first invited to speak at a cryonics meeting in Newport Beach, California. And from there, it spiraled quite quickly. I started getting the attention of mainstream people for the kinds of things I was saying. And I started to end up, being able to leverage other talents of mine, like charisma and so on, and generally become quite useful as an advocate, not just as a scientist. And I started running my own conferences starting in 2003, which were hardcore science by and large, but which were also very much open to and welcoming gifted amateurs, people who knew enough science to be able to understand most of the talks, but who were not working in that as their profession, but who were very much longevists, who wanted to do something about aging. And as time went on, I did more and more of that. I did actually speak at People Unlimited one time, but I forget which year that was. It was probably about 04 or 05. By the time Radfest became contemplated, certainly the mid-2010s, I was thinking like, advocacy has a real place in this. We've got to get people on board. And a lot of that involves, focusing on the inherent merits of doing something about aging, as opposed to the nuts and bolts of how we're going to do it. And therefore, organizations like People Unlimited, have a very definite, legitimate place in this ecosystem. But the ecosystem works the best when it's an actual ecosystem. In other words, when there's good communication between those groups. And that's really hard to do. because there's a certain amount of, either, as you said, the advocates thinking that the science is boring, or the scientists thinking that the advocates are distraction, and so on. So it's very hard to put them together. And honestly, when Jim and Bernie started trying to do this back in 2016, I was somewhat skeptical that it would be possible at all. In fact, I felt that having come from a history of being on one side of that fence already
Mhm.
actually made it harder. Because you've got a particular reputation already.
Yeah.
As opposed to just coming in cold with having no prior history. But the fact is, as Jim said, they pulled it off in a big way. They didn't just get a lot of people in the door; they also constructed a program that worked. There were only a few really credentialed scientists there at that time. Apart from myself, there was Bill Andrews, you've already mentioned. I think Michael Rose was also there the first year. Very few though. But over the next couple of years, it grew in terms of its hybrid nature. It made it really work. I wrote an editorial in my journal, Rejuvenation Research, celebrating this and congratulating Jim and Bernie on having pulled it off. And it's just gone from strength to strength. So fast forward to this year, I've been continuing to run my own scientific conferences, but
Mhm.
for the last decade, they've been in Europe. In fact,
Yeah.
they've really almost all been in Europe. There was just a couple that we ran in San Francisco around the early 2010s. And that's been good because there's been other conferences over in the US, not just Radfest, but quite a few others that have been kind of doing that job.
Mhm.
In Europe, there's not been much, but that has gradually changed, and
Mhm.
now we have a situation where the European longevity conference environment is really saturated. There's
Yeah.
a lot of them. There were two new ones just last year. Whereas in the US, the opposite has happened. A couple of the most important conferences in the US in this field have been discontinued. There's not enough. And so I felt like now's the time to relocate. And then in terms of how to relocate, then Jim and Joe came to me, and I was really already thinking about maybe having a closer relationship with Radfest than just turning up and giving a
Mhm.
talk.
Mhm.
Um, and so the whole idea of doing this essentially half and half, came together extremely quickly and smoothly. And since then, of course, it's all been the operational aspects of figuring out how to dovetail the two organizations and make everything work. And that's all gone really smoothly as well.
Yeah.
We haven't had really any hiccups. The coalition that people are a joy to work with.
Yeah.
And, I'm so looking forward to July the 10th.
So let's talk about, Jim, you were just saying how just a few weeks ago, Aubrey and his team were there and you guys really were just flowing. So give us a little sneak peek. What can we be excited that you guys are envisioning for this amazing time of the two organizations coming together? Also, right there at the 10-year anniversary, you're doing it at a different time of year. You're doing it in a resort location, so there's more room for us to spread and to truly like take in all the beautiful aspects of what it means to be human. So what are some of the things that you guys are envisioning for this 10-year Radfest?
Well, okay, wow. Yeah, it's going to be, first of all, Aubrey, I know, has got some new announcements that he'll be making, some progress, some progressive announcements. I'm sure some of the speakers he's bringing to the table will have some exciting new news too. Everybody we're bringing in this year, as I've said many times, the coalition is not a commercial organization in the sense that we're not selling products. Our focus is to bring the best to the table every time for people to be able to have the best opportunities to improve their health, to live with vitality and strength. For example, I encourage people to take olive oil, a tablespoon of olive oil morning and night. I think it's just another good little practice, good little hack. But we don't sell olive oil.
Right,
We don't sell any of it. So we don't have a vested interest in anybody
right.
or we'll have to account to any company. We don't get percentages from the exhibitors. They're there and providing their whatever they've got to offer people, and people can have their choices there. So that's a very powerful thing in itself. So we're focused, both Aubrey and I think we've multiplied our focus here is what we've done for this
Oh, I
10th
like
year. Yeah, we've expanded our focus. with the best of science and the best of information and application, because that's important. People want to come there. They not only want to learn, they want to know, okay, how do I do this? They want to be inspired to do it, because so often, they'll buy a bunch of products somewhere at some event. They'll go home, use them for a little while,
Yeah.
then stop it, not have any, sustainable movement. And so that's what we want to create. We're a sustainable movement. We want to show people what they can do on a daily basis to stay alive until the next innovation comes along. So that's the biggest thing I feel right now for this event, is that between Aubrey and now we've magnified,
Yeah.
the whole program to like X 10 times
Yeah.
X now. It's like going
Yeah.
to be very powerful. And we're the original event. There's other events that
Yes.
sprout from us, and I'm happy they did. I'm all for anybody doing anything that level, but we're the original event. We're the original gangsters here.
The longevity revolution is about more than just searching online for a few hacks, or any one of us moving our biomarkers in the right direction. It's about coming together to learn, share, to connect, and create the unlimited future we want. That's why you need to be at RAADfest 2025 in Las Vegas from July 10th to the 13th. Radfest, the revolution against aging and death, is proud to be partnering for the first time with Dr. Aubrey de Grey and Longevity Escape Velocity Foundation to form the single most comprehensive, advanced, informative, and inspiring event on age reversal for a general audience. Meet the people you want to make forever with. Radfest 2025. Take advantage of lower advanced pricing now at radfest.com.
I love that. The OGs. Okay, indeed. And I would be almost as bold to say you really are part of the original biohacking movement, from the standpoint of you guys brought something to market at a time that it was only just starting to be discussed kind of in other realms. Like how do we hack our health? How do we hack our life to be more, right? And so I will say I am privy, you guys. So I'm privy to get to have being on the board and having some of these meetings. I can tease you and tell you that it's going to be a very immersive experience this year. And Jim, you just said something really, really important that I know what's near and dear to your heart, and also yours as well, Aubrey. For you, Jim, it is radical life extension, and you are an immortalist. And obviously, Aubrey, you did the movie The Immortalist. And so this idea of like, how do we just really flip the script on how we have come to be programmed to believe what aging is and what more can be possible. And you both, in your own lanes and your own way, have each been out there as a voice for a bigger vision of what is possible in the human system for a very, very, very long time. And yet, Jim, what you said was so important is it's we're not here to sell stuff, but we're here to help you get what you need today, because Aubrey, you tell us all the time about longevity escape velocity. We got to be good today so we can get to this thing that's coming. So Aubrey, talk to us a little bit about that, because again, you've been telling us for a long time what's coming. So what do you feel are maybe some of the most important things that might be talked about at this year's RAADfest or highlighted that can help people today to get to longevity escape velocity?
Well, let me answer that question as two questions, because it kind of is. Um,
Perfect.
uh, the, um, the way the program's going to be arranged is that essentially Jim and Joe have given me half the time to organize, a third of the time, or maybe 40% of the time on the main stage, plus a bunch of breakout sessions. And that's still going to be a squeeze for me. It still means that the total amount of time on stage that I have to allocate to speakers is considerably less than I would have had at my events over the past several years. But I'm fine with that, because first of all, the audience will be broader than it
Mhm.
would have been if we were not collaborating with the coalition. And secondly, because this is the first time we're doing it this way, I can give it a transition. Maybe we'll have more next year. So I'm fine with that. But it does mean that the program viewed as a whole will be much more hybrid. There'll be there'll be something for everybody. And I'm quite sure that the participation will be much more hybrid as a result, which is, of course, definitely what we want. We want to bring people together. That's a mantra that I've had ever since the beginning of my conference organizing career, starting back in 2003, which I guess makes me even more of an original gangster than Jim.
There we go.
But Uh, I mean, we're taking that to a whole new level by combining with Radfest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in terms of the other part of your question though about what can be done today, I think that when most people ask themselves or ask me for that question, they mean what can they do today in terms of diet and lifestyle and supplements and things that are available right now. Sorry about this helicopter. I assume it won't last too long. Um, should I stop for a minute until it goes away so you can?
I cannot hear it. You're good. Your mic is really good.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, so so when I answer that question, I remind people that they can do a great deal more today than just look after themselves and wear a seatbelt. I mean that's very important. When people ask me what I do, I say I don't accept seminar invitations to dangerous countries. Um, um,
Good
uh,
point.
right. But the thing is, what one can do is invest in the future rate of progress. Because at the end of the day, everything we have today, however well you adhere to it, is going to give you a couple of years of extra life. It's not the Holy Grail. It's not the fountain of youth. It's better than nothing, but it's only a little bit better than nothing. And yes, being better than nothing means that you will slightly improve your chances of making the cut and being around when we get to longevity, escape velocity, and we have aging under what will, for practical purposes, amount to complete medical control. But the other way to increase that probability is to hasten the arrival of longevity, escape velocity. And that means doing a whole bunch of other things. It means advocacy in all manner of ways. Everyone can do advocacy. You can all talk to your friends and your colleagues and your family and persuade them that this is actually a good thing to be thinking about, and that they should not be held up in this terrible state of terror of getting their hopes up, the way that almost everybody is across the whole world. There's also funding, of course. At the end of the day, this requires research, which costs money, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't have much money. I can't make much difference." First of all, every dollar counts. But second of all, it links up with the advocacy part. Because the poorer you are, the more people you know who are wealthier than you. And so the more people you can influence, right? That's not that's not frivolous. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's other ways of having influence. You're doing it right now by interviewing me and Jim. You're making a difference by raising the quality of people's understanding of this field, where it's going, how rapidly it's going, all those kinds of things. There's a lot of people like you who aren't doing what you're doing, and they should be. And there's more than that. There's political influence,
Yeah.
of course. We all know that politicians have one goal in life, which is to get re-elected, and therefore they won't actually do anything unless they think there are votes in it, however, warm their words may be when you talk to them. But that means we just have to make sure that there are votes in it, right? Which again comes back to advocacy. So all of these things, I'm always about the short term and the long term together. If you're only focused on your supplements and your diet and your lifestyle, then you're not focusing on the long term. If you're only focusing on the science, then you're not focusing on the short term. You need to do both.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to bring a few things together and I want to throw something over to you, Jim. So, one of the factors that I appreciate the most when looking at centenarians, one of the main qualities that they all hold is how they look forward. There's always this forward thinking, forward looking. And so being very present, like they're completely immersed in the present and they're always looking forward to what's next. And you just really surmise that, saying, hey, it's a little bit of and both, right? Like we need to do the things we can do today. And one of the big things that you're saying is advocacy, which I really like. And hang tight, Jim, I'm coming to you with this. And so that can begin today in how we show up to look forward. The advocacy is about looking forward to what is the world we want to create? What is for ourselves, for our community, for our family, globally, collectively, what can become possible? And until we start having a different conversation, we're just going to have more of the same that we've always had. So we will never move the needle if we don't start at least asking new questions and just opening up to new potentials and possibilities. And yet, this conversation around radical life extension or even immortality can be polarizing to some. And now I know we're not saying that it has to be advocating all the way to the far end, but one of the things you say, Jim, often is like, let's have a smorgasbord at the table. So I'm curious what you might offer so that we can invite more people to the table of advocacy and conversation and potentiality. What do you say to skeptics who claim that radical life extension is unnatural or even undesirable? And how can we begin to flip that narrative?
Okay, well, yeah, Aubrey already made a lot of good points on this. I would say that the biggest thing right now is, well, a couple of things, I guess, is that it's important that all of everyone who has any sense of that death, okay, and aging is really shouldn't be as unnatural, should be a real trump making the sound, blowing the trumpet. In any way that they feel a capacity, they can do that, whether it be like podcasts like you're doing, social media posting continuously. I mean, a lot of people who say aren't maybe have the platforms that we have available to them right now can post, right? They can
Yeah.
post a lot and they just keep, bringing that out to the public because that's really the core reason we started RAADfest is
Yeah.
to bring this great opportunity of unlimited life, unlimited potential for living and with vitality and strength to the world, to give people an option. We're not trying to push this on anybody.
Right.
Like you said, it's like we're trying to set the table full so people can pick what they want. I'm an immortalist, but I'm not saying everybody has to be that. You might just want to live a few extra years and with vitality and strength. Like Ray Kurzweil recently said, though, people sometimes say, "Oh, I want to live till I'm 90," until they get 90, and then they want to keep going. So
Yes.
that's a really important thing to be in touch with. I told some people, oh, they say, well, I want to live to 150. Okay, great. I want to encourage you, live to 150 with vitality and strength. But I also tell them, look, I bet you when you get there and you're feeling good, you're going to want to keep on going. But the
Yeah.
point being that, choose what works for you. And I think that's going to bring together, if you say, how are we going to bring together more people, is not be
Mhm.
judgmental about anybody, where
Mhm.
they come from, who they are, what their belief systems are. If they have any feeling about living at all, to encourage that, have a wide open conversations that people can criticize or challenge whatever we're doing at any level, as long as that's done respectfully. I always say at Radfest, that we can question things. We're trying to get, I don't have an investment of what has to be right. My investment is in the best way for us to achieve what we want to achieve in unlimited lifespans. And I think by opening up that I'll say spectrum for everybody, that opportunity for
Mhm.
everybody, instead of having, I've heard sometimes, like for example, certain people in the network criticize others, maybe different belief systems and kind of alienate. We shouldn't be alienating anybody. All right. I think what we have to offer is for everybody in the world, and we're not to condemn or demonize any other organization or the FDA or anybody else. I think we're offering, and this is the great thing about it, we're offering a great life here that everybody can benefit from, a great
Yeah.
opportunities, great. Like Aubrey said, maybe it's just a couple more years extra life we can get now by doing these things, and who knows? I mean, it'll expand and expand. It's exponentially growth is amazing. But yes, we're looking for, amazing, age reversal and age stopping modality that will happen, but we have to stay alive to get there. And we have to open this up to everybody so
Mhm.
that we can get everybody's input, because collective intelligence is the best. As,
Yes.
Yeah,
as
I want to really echo that for a moment
Yeah.
because in the time that I've been in this field, the thing that Jim emphasized there has really transformed. There are still, as Jim says, a few people who engage in, criticism of people with different belief systems in this space, but there's far, far less of it than there was. You
yeah,
know,
that's right.
you know, 20 years ago when I was, when the things I was saying about how to go about the science were quite controversial in contrast to now when they're very, very much accepted, um, people were saying that I was doing harm to the field.
Mhm.
Even though they were also saying that I was bringing people into the field and inspiring them. That has pretty much gone away. There is, on the academic side, I'm talking now,
Mhm.
there is a very widespread understanding that even though, different people have different opinions about the emphasis of the messaging, the extent to which one should talk about radical life extension versus health span, still there's much less criticism in fighting within the field than there used to be. I
Yes.
will say, I mean, the reasons for that spectrum of emphasis are valid reasons. Like for example, my credibility comes from being a good scientist, and that the non-scientists listen to me because they know I'm a good scientist. So I always run away very, very fast from the word immortality, just because it's taken. Its actual meaning is, zero risk of death from any cause, even the heat death of the universe, and, I don't do that. But I certainly do talk about longevity escape velocity, which is something that a lot of my colleagues have difficulty talking about, even though they know that it's mathematically inevitable. So there's always a spectrum because of different people having different audiences and different sources of their own credibility. And that's okay.
Are you ready to redefine aging and unlock your full potential as a longevity leader? At the Human Longevity Institute, our world-class certification programs train doctors, coaches, and wellness professionals how to deliver cutting-edge integrative longevity health solutions so people can live better today for longer, healthier, and more vibrant tomorrows. If you're ready to join the longevity revolution, visit humanlongevityinstitute.com to enroll and become a practitioner today. Well, and you both said something so important. I want to bring our listeners in to, again, give context that we can sit here and we have our passions, we have our backgrounds, we have our science, we have the movements that we are all, involved in. To the potential layperson, the enthusiast that's listening, you even teed it up, Aubrey, by saying, hey, since 2002, you were one of the very first conferences out there, and the landscape now is flooded, especially in Europe. And why is this? Why are we seeing more and more people come to the table? Why are we seeing the conversation more and more comfortable, democratized, more agreed to? Because fundamentally, we have a flip in the global population, like the reality that we are living longer, not necessarily better yet, although that's a big part of this, right? And if we if we keep doing things the way we've been doing them, then we're on that path for more of an economic demise. However, again, and the big reason for this whole health span conversation is that it gives us something measurable. And Andrew Scott's work was the pinnacle of it, of showing when we can just add one extra year of health free from sickness and disease. Just in the US alone, we infuse over $4 trillion annually, just here, with one extra year of health not being on medications. And
Right.
so that's really powerful, right? And money leads the way and leads the conversation to what drives economics around the globe.
And
But
there's one word that explains all of what's happened over the past 20, 25 years in that respect. That one word is bootstrapping. The progress that we've made is not nearly as much as we would have liked to see, but it's really impressive nevertheless. It's really unrecognizable. And it's all happened through a long series of incremental small changes, small pieces of progress that have made incremental small changes to the tone, the form of words that authoritative people say, and that has spiraled. So, back in 2003 when I started my conferences, I was not only proper, translational gerontology conference in the world. There were academic conferences that were all about understanding aging as a phenomenon, rather like, conferences about seismology. People who study earthquakes, they know that they're bad for you, but they don't have any aspiration to actually stopping them from happening, right? And then there were conferences like the A4M, which were really all about selling snake oil. And that was all, right? And so I came in with the first ever legitimate translational gerontology conference. And then, though, the progress was so slow in labs around the world that even though I was the only conference, I would not have the material with which to run it every year. It was every 2 years, for the first 12 years. And now we've got, as you say, saturation almost, which is fantastic. And it's the same at the level of the economy. So Andrew Scott's work is fantastic, but it's not new. I mean, it's new in the sense that there's more data behind it, there's more analysis, but the term longevity dividend, which is the exact moniker for all of this, was coined 40 years ago, or at least 30 years ago. There were papers with that title back then saying pretty much exactly the same thing. almost getting to the same numbers. Um, and it's just that they're getting more of an audience now. People are actually listening because they think that the possibility that we might actually achieve that 1 year, let alone the 7 years or whatever, is greater than they used to think it was.
Yeah. And I would say you're in large part to that. Having the conversation around longevity, escape, velocity, again, continues to bring us back to the here and now to say the little things that we do today can hedge that gap, right? It can give us just a little bit extra
Well,
we need.
so let me drill down on that a little bit because now you mentioned Andrew Scott, this is actually a rather good example.
Okay.
So Andrew was the first person, even though the longevity dividend concept's been around a long time, Andrew was the first person ever to go with to actually analyze properly what he called the Wolverine scenario, which is actual rejuvenation rather than
Yep.
slowing aging down, which is, of course, what I'm all about and what Jim is all about. Um, but he did it really badly the first time. What he did was he said, okay, let's see what happens if we rejuvenate people by 20 years and we do it when they're 60, but then we only do it once. We never do it again.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, what the hell? Yeah, why would anyone want to analyze that? But anyway, he still got really good numbers, right? And then after me beating him up quite a lot, he did a second paper which said, okay, we're doing this intervention repeatedly. And he got even better numbers. But even then, he didn't do the proper longevity escape velocity thing, which requires the interventions to improve over time. The whole
Yes.
point of LEV is that it buys the scientists time to make the therapies better. And he didn't
Yes.
do that. He said we've had the same therapy each time. And sure enough, you get, a good result, but it's nothing like indefinite longevity. It's nothing like what Jim and I want. And
Hmm.
I've been beating him up for the past 2 years, saying, do the right thing, for goodness sake. He understands what the right thing is. And he's always kind of not quite found the time. So think about that. Is he actually not finding the time? Or is he just terrified that the numbers he will get will be so bizarre that it
Yeah.
will hurt his professional reputation? Right?
Hmm.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we're not there yet.
Uh,
Yeah.
Let me just
Yeah.
add something here, Melissa, that to another point. I wanted to point out that for this year's RAADfest also is we're putting out a call. I am particularly for people to be there. The longevity advocate and anybody else that's interested in becoming one or just exploring this new world, because it's going to be also a launch pad that we're going to use for the longevity rally we want to do at DC
Yeah.
in the 26th. And we'll probably be holding Radfest at DC too at that time. We're looking for a location to combine them both. But this is very important because we have more and more exposure, okay, like you're talking about, more and more events popping up, et cetera, et cetera. But we're still dealing, in my mind, a situation of the money being channeled, to real age reversal research, curing aging
Mhm.
research. All right. And, and like Aubrey said, small amounts, every amount matters. Okay. But overall, huge amounts of money are being funneled too often to, I'll say, dead end streets
Mhm.
or say not as advantageous results. Okay.
Yeah.
If we get, for example, at the rally, one of our initiatives is to get aging um, defined as a disease, or even real best choice medicine, some of the other initiatives we put out. Then we're going to start being able to coordinate efforts, because like also Aubrey said, the politicians are not going to do much. They're going to do what they get voted in for. But if we start getting
Mhm.
public opinion on this level, that's what I'm interested in. This money gets funneled to where it really can accentuate and expand the growth of what we're trying to accomplish here. It
Mhm.
makes all the difference in the world. Not enough money yet goes to age reversal or curing aging research. All right, very little overall, and too
Yeah.
often it gets misdirected then in other ways. So I want to say this because this is important that anyone who's listening to this, be at RAADfest, we're rallying there, we're gathering together. Not only will you get the best of the benefit of that event, but you're then contributing. This is how you can contribute to the mass movement of what we want to create in this to shift public opinion and to get where we want to get more rapidly.
Yeah. No, and thank you, Jim. That also ties it into advocacy and what is coming and the ways that people can engage and participate. And one of the things I want to just share is as we've got a few minutes left together today, and I'm really excited about it. But I really want to inspire our listening audience to appreciate that this conversation around longevity and radical life extension, it is not just health in the human system, but rather, and we're going to talk about this year, understand that this is a global conversation because, yes, it starts in the physical body, and we need to look at how do we help this human system be healthier longer. Yet, what drives the expression of health in the human system is all of the inputs from the exposome, from everything around us, from the environment and the world and the foods and the thoughts and the frequencies and all the things, all the things. But my point being is that all of the things are across all these different sectors of society. So the decisions that governments make, that corporations make, that farmers make, that urban planners make, that artists make, the decisions that are made in these different sectors ultimately trickle down and influence us on an individual level. But what if we could flip it all on its ear? And this is part of what's going to be shared this year at RAADfest. If we can begin to same coin, different side, we look at it from a different way and say, if we understand what can create more of that health span, what are the things that can allow this system, what are the breakthroughs that can support greater states of health expression? And now we look at where can this be driven from across these sectors of society? This isn't just a what's happening in a lab and what's happening at a cellular level conversation. It is, and it is also so much more. So when we talk about advocacy, when we talk about what is here and what is coming, what we want to invite you all into, it's something quite massive. And it's not just siloed in only one lane. There's going to be so many ways that each of us can get behind this conversation and have more of these conversations based around our own interests as well. I mean, talking with Joe, he is an artist and he creates movies and scripts, and he's like, I want to talk about it as through the artist lens. I'm like, and absolutely, because that matters also. What are the stories that we are telling? How do we represent this conversation, right? And the innovation that can come when we actually think about living better today for longer tomorrows, hitting that escape velocity. It's an exciting time.
It is. It is. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Go
to.
ahead, Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead first. I just got one slogan I want to end with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just going to mention that yeah, and to that point of people being able to experience or to develop, like you said, with like Joe and developing the magnitude of what he wants in art, be alive. I'm going to talk about how to do that, how to get that resilience and strength. That you need, because we're gonna need a lot more than we think in living, an unlimited lifespan or longer than is expected, because there's so many challenges. We see that through COVID and many other things we've already faced this last, 5-10 years. And I got a real myself an awakening in that hey, we're gonna need a supernatural strength, and we have that in us. And I'm gonna talk about how to tap into that more at RAADfest, and that's going to benefit everybody from that level.
That's exciting. I love it.
Well,
Aubrey.
so Jim actually slightly stole my thunder there. And I'm very pleased that he did, because this could lead to a very interesting synergy at Radfest.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to make sure to end this thing with was to highlight the slogan that I am using, and I've been using for a little while now, maybe the past 6 or 8 months, that really underpins my current plan for really doing something about aging as quickly as possible. I believe that, so people often ask me, they say, what's the most important thing that's happened for the crusade against aging in the past 10 years? Or questions along those lines. And my current answer is an answer that absolutely blows away almost everybody. My answer is COVID. COVID is the best thing that's happened for our field.
Oh, there you go.
And the reason it is because it has, first of all, it happened recently, so people remember the nuts and bolts, the details. And second of all, it shows us what humanity is capable of doing when it actually comes together and puts its mind to it.
Your story.
What we saw there was an extraordinary thing. You can measure it in many ways. One way is look at what happened with the vaccines. These vaccines were developed and distributed literally more than 10 times faster than any other vaccine in the history of humanity. If you'd asked people the previous year whether a vaccine could be distributed even twice as fast as had ever happened before, they said, well, obviously not. There's all these regulations and risk aversion on the part of the public and so on and so forth. And bang, it was all completely swept away. It was all just as if it didn't exist. That is a precedent.
It is.
That is something that we can start from. We also have to look at the sacrifices. The fact that this was a very, very age-specific disease. I mean, not entirely age-specific, of course, but more age-leaning than almost any other infection in terms of the age of the people who suffered and died. And yet, the whole of humanity, people in their young adulthood, pretty willingly accepted a very substantial diminution in their quality of life for quite a while in order to save other people's lives. That's what has been really missing in the longevity world. You talk to 90% of the people who are already longevists, and they will focus on themselves in terms of why they're doing what they're doing. They will not be, focused on humanity in general. I've never understood that.
Yeah.
So my slogan is, our goal, my slogan, when I'm talking to the longevist community, my slogan is, let us make aging the new COVID.
Oh.
Interesting. That's gonna catch some attention for sure. And
I like that because it is everybody's gonna go, what?
Right? Yeah, that's a disruptor. And that's what you've done forever, Aubrey. That's part of your magic. And it's like, and it's beautiful because it can be so disruptive, but it makes people won't forget it. They'll be like, what? What do you mean by that? Like, so interesting. I absolutely love it.
Awesome
And
conversation point. Awesome. That's a disruptor, right?
completely.
I hope so. I hope it will astonish people enough to make them actually think.
I think
Yes.
so. Yeah, I like it, Aubrey. Awesome.
And that's exactly what's going to happen at RAADfest this year, everyone. It is about disruption. It is about thinking bigger, broader, bolder, to stay curious, right? Because together we are all, and you just said it, and I really want to applaud it, Aubrey and Jim. I know this is what you've always been about. It's why you helped to co-found People Unlimited. It's really about the power of community, meaning thinking bigger than self. And how, my entire Earth mission is to make this positive contribution in human flourishing. Like, how can I help to enhance human flourishing globally? It's never about one. It is about the whole because we are all in it together. So when you all come to RAADfest this July 10th through the 13th, out in Las Vegas at the beautiful Red Rock Resort, and it is quite lovely, you will be inspired. You will be educated, you will be uplifted, you will be engaged, you will be really, I can say it, having attended multiple RAADfest, it is really unique in that you have the experts and enthusiasts all in one place together, sharing, collaborating, and really helping to create the new future beginning today. So I want to thank you both for your time. This is going to be an epic gathering, and what a brilliant time for the two organizations to come together. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Aubrey. It's just been an honor.
Well, thank you, Melissa, and see you then.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everybody. The links are below. Get your tickets. We want to see you guys there. You are going to want to be there. You're going to get to go talk to these amazing humans together. I'll see you there too. And until next time, continue to be bold, stay curious, and express your greatest states of aliveness. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Radcast, where science and soul ignite the future of radical life extension. Be sure to visit us over at radfest.com. There you can engage with like minds in the super longevity movement and find out about upcoming conferences and events. If you're inspired by today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to live bigger, bolder, and longer. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time on Radcast.